Hi, it's Ed Martin, president of Phyllis Schlafly Eagles, again with you. We've got another opportunity, well, really a need to fact check Mrs. America, the FX series that's streaming over on Hulu. You know, please visit realmrsamerica.com and like it and share it and subscribe right down here to pass these videos out to other people. We got a lot of work to do to get the real truth out there. Hollywood is lying again. Let's spend some time here. Episode 8 of Mrs. America. Well, it's filled with more lies. This time they're taking the International Women's Year Conference, this famous taxpayer-funded conference in Houston, Texas, and they're trying to make it as if this was the climax, the victory point, the highest, great celebration of the women's libers and the feminist movement and the ERA, when in fact, historians will tell you this was the beginning of the end. It really was the downfall of the feminist movement. We've got to look at some real clips from Mrs. America and also watch some real clips of the event itself, the facts, not just the made-up stuff.
Most people in this country don't want the ERA, and we deserve to have our voices heard.
How do you explain the public opinion polls that show a majority of people in this country support the ERA?
Which poll?
All of them.
I never said a majority.
So you don't believe a majority of Americans support your position?
No. I mean, yes. You're twisting my words. What I was trying to say is feminists are a radical minority, and most women support our movement.
Where are you getting your information?
This is the fake character. Now think about this. The Mrs. America producers admit that they made up this character Alice. No such person existed, but they basically created a close colleague of Phyllis Schlafly and then made up her thoughts and made up her theories and made up her doubts and all this stuff. Fake characters, kind of like fake news. And here we're talking about fake polls. It's supposed to make the feminists look good by having these fake polls. This might sound familiar, by the way, all the way down to 2020 and 2016 with fake polls. Here's what Phyllis Schlafly had to say on the MacNeil-Lehrer Report. You may remember that. It was a very popular show, MacNeil-Lehrer Report, that weekend in November of 1977 as Phyllis was exposing these fake polls. It's not the greatest quality recording when you watch this, but listen closely. It's all the wonderful footage we have in the Phyllis Schlafly Center in our archives. Watch this clip.
Schlafly, that's a remarkable observation. If 20%, and I've heard this figure before, of the women at this conference represent, roughly speaking, your views, and you pick up 20% sort of across the board in this poll, doesn't that demonstrate that the women's conference is, in fact, representative of your views?
No, it doesn't demonstrate that at all. And if you didn't get now to pay for that poll, you really got gypped. I've seen a lot of loaded questions, but I seldom have seen one so loaded as the one that you didn't read but is on there, and really, in effect, accuses Phyllis Schlafly of being against women's rights. Now, to phrase the question that way is really completely dishonest. I am for the rights of women, the right of women to be exempt from the draft and from military combat duty, the right of a wife to be supported by her husband. And when it is couched in the framework of women's rights, you have simply not presented an honest question.
I think that the audience does know what you're speaking of there. It was the women's rights. I don't understand your complaint.
Yeah, well, I don't understand why you're giving so much time to a poll of 600 people. If you want to talk about a real poll, look, for example, on the ERA at the vote in the state of New York, where the ERA proponents had everything going for them, and it was overwhelmingly defeated.
Ms. Schlafly, we're quite satisfied to stand by the poll. We have every faith in the Roper organization who did this up. They've been demonstrated to be very accurate, skillful pollsters in the past.
But it's all a matter of how you ask the question.
Well, that is their business, not ours, Ms. Schlafly, and they're professionals in the business.
You get now to pay for it.
Well,
what do you think of the results?
We accept contributions.
Is your position that the poll is these results don't mean anything? Is that what you're
sure. If you ask people, are you for women's rights or are you for Phyllis Schlafly? That is the silliest, dumbest question I ever heard, and that is in effect what you were asking them.
How about on the actual issues, Ms. Schlafly? How about support for ERA, for example?
Oh, good. I'm glad you brought that up.
Right.
ERA has been defeated in every state that's considered it in the last 2 years except one. Those representatives who've been voting no over the last 6 years have been facing the voters every 2 years, and they keep getting reelected because their constituents like the way they're voting.
Which is what the poll shows, of course, that ERA has dropped support over stuff, but that's not a valid result. You can't have it both ways, Ms. Schlafly.
The valid poll is the poll in the ballot box.
As always, Phyllis is quick on her feet. You got to love it, the way she does this, and especially in responding to these fake polls. They were loaded questions, just like you see pollsters today. And, we're fighting that fight almost every time we're told by the media something and told to believe it. Phyllis knew that, and, frankly, it was decades and decades ago that she was exposing this problem. Now let's watch another clip from the fake Hollywood version, Mrs. America. Watch this.
Are you a sleepover?
I'm sorry, I think we have the wrong room.
The front desk said you were coming. Welcome. I'm Audrey.
I'm Pamela. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
You have a lot of bags. Want to trade?
No, but thank you.
This is just one of the many examples, and some of them may seem subtle. They may be weaved in and out. This is Hollywood painting the feminists as always getting along, always kind, always friendly. Here at the IWY, the National Convention, they show the feminists being the liberals being so kind and gentle to the pro-family women. But that's not what the history shows. In fact, one of the books that Mrs. America, the Hollywood, $50 million effort, one of the books they bought the rights to is Carol Felsenthal's book. It's called The Sweetheart of the Silent Majority. Carol Felsenthal was a liberal. She's still alive today. She's a liberal-leaning journalist, and she wrote a book, and she actually was with Phyllis in Houston during the IWY. Carol Felsenthal personally witnessed the nastiness of the feminists, the really mean-spirited stuff. In fact, she wrote about one of the feminists who tried to spit at Phyllis and narrowly missed. That's one of the examples. In another one, this is what a feminist said, quoted by another liberal, by this liberal reporter. Here's what Carol wrote, quote, "You're a traitor to your sex, Phyllis. When you die, the women of this country will rejoice. And you don't have long, Phyllis, believe me," end quote. That's not very ladylike. Mrs. America is trying to spin us and tell us something's not true. Let's take another look. Take another look here at a clip. It's another distortion that Mrs. America is pushing. Watch this.
This is what the abortionists...
Order, let us speak. They have a right to speak.
This is what the abortionists do. They take the lovely baby from its natural habitat, and they rip it out, and they throw it away.
That's amazing. Hollywood makes Bella Abzug look so gracious as she runs this massive taxpayer-funded effort, this IWY conference. They say, isn't that nice? She allows the delegates to speak. But that's not the facts. That's a lie. Over the whole length of the conference, which went on for many, many, many hours, over a couple of days, here's what we know. And it was written down contemporaneously by Phyllis Schlafly, published in December of 1977 in her Phyllis Schlafly report. She wrote this down. No one's ever disputed it. And it was this, quote, she noted that Abzug used every opportunity to control who was recognized at the microphones and to prevent pro-family delegates from speaking at all. This is Phyllis Schlafly writing in 1977. In 3 days of sessions, pro-family delegates were only allowed to make one-minute statement against the ERA and two-minute statements opposing abortion. Think of that. Over 3 days, millions of taxpayer dollars, Bella Abzug controlled the dais, controlled the microphones, 5 minutes total. That the people who opposed this crazy liberal agenda were doing. That's all they were allowed, is 5 minutes. And here's Hollywood, Mrs. America, saying how gracious they were. Doesn't make sense. Phyllis wrote at the time, again, you know, a lot of times, the most important thing is contemporaneous writings and reporting about what happened, because if there's a dispute, over time you would see it. There's no disputing these facts. And if you come to the Phyllis Schlafly Center in St. Louis, Missouri, in the archives, you'll find all of the writings. We have the articles opposing Phyllis, people that were criticizing, all of that's compiled there. And Mrs. America, the $50 million Hollywood production, never bothered. We offered. They never bothered to come to look at the truth. Here's what Phyllis wrote at the time. She wrote, quote, the IWY was a federally financed, foolish festival for frustrated feminists. Phyllis loved that kind of writing. Mrs. America, just like the IWY, is now trying to rewrite all of this history for the world to see. We have to keep fighting back. You know, soon this will be over. Hulu will stop streaming this series. I hope they put it behind a paywall and they never talk about it again. Let people look, try to find it if they can. Hopefully they won't. But we've got to keep getting out the truth. I hope you'll please like and share this and subscribe down below so we can send you more information. And please visit realmrsamerica.com. It's not just these videos, oh, there's lots of them there. It's also the facts, photos, audio, video from the period. It's really important. realmrsamerica.com. And we'll be back for more fact checking. There's more to do. So thanks for listening to this one.